Hello and welcome to Round 1 coverage of Grand Prix Montreal. I'm Brian David Marshall, joined in the booth by Pro Tour champion Jake Van Lunen. JVL, what are we looking at here between Einar Baldvinsson, member of the World Magic Cup team from Iceland a few years ago, against Paul Hudson?
Well, these are both Marvel decks. And that's not surprising. This weekend, we're probably going to be seeing a lot of that. These are two very different types of Marvel decks. Teamer Marvel is, you know, the go-to stock version of Marvel at this point. But Sultai Marvel has had quite a bit of success on Magic Online recently,
well,
especially considering how few people have been playing it.
It also had a lot of success at the Pro Tour. You got to keep in mind that the PGO, the subdivision of Team Puzzle Quest, 3 players in the top 25 playing Sultai Marvel at the Pro Tour.
Yeah, and that's pretty impressive. And I'm surprised more people haven't been talking about this version of the deck, because this is, in many ways, an evolution of the strategy. And cards like Demon of Dark Schemes, does he have Noxious Gearhulk?
He does, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And Ishkana, Graph Widow, and Demon of Dark Schemes.
Yeah, those cards are really nice at being able to recover from an opposing Ulamog, which is cool. Another thing that I really like about this list is that he has access to Yahini's Expertise, which is a card that we almost certainly would not have seen last weekend of the Pro Tour, but with all these zombies running around, that's the perfect kind of card to clear the board and put some pressure on your opponent.
So turn 2 Servant of the Conduit for Einar Baldvinsson. Now, on the other side of the table, you know, the Teamer Marvel deck. This is, of course, you know, what I think people have been referring to as Flamecaller Marvel, because this is the version that Martin Mueller and Team Nessus brought to the table, where they were playing with Chandra Flamecaller, which was great in a room full of very flammable zombies. Oh,
yeah. I mean, it's a great way to sweep up the board. Oftentimes, you get to keep the Planeswalker in play after you sweep up the board. It's a pretty gross spell if you've got a chance to play with it at all.
So Fatal Push takes down the Servant, and then we get a Vessel of Nascency from Paul Hudson. So this really is like a Delirium ish version of the Marvel deck.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing that's nice about a card like Vessel of Nascency is that it's turning on Ishkana, which is basically going to be a brick wall against all these aggressive strategies we're going to see this weekend. And if you're somehow able to turn off the Ulamogs in an opposing Marvel deck, Ishkana is just really hard for them to get through. Like, a Whirler Virtuoso does not match up well against an Ishkana Graph Widow.
So Rogue Refiner comes down for Einar, and then at the end of that turn, Paul Hudson activates the Vessel. And then he is going to pick up his own Rogue Refiner out of the graveyard. And both of these players are just progressing towards who can be the first person to get to 4 mana and 6 energy.
Yeah. And a lot of the time, game 1 in this matchup really comes down to that.
So there's the Rogue Refiner. You see the Marvel in hand for Paul Hudson. He's got 2 energy thanks to that Rogue Refiner. Had to use one on his Aether Hub to cast the Rogue Refiner in the first place, so he doesn't really get to the halfway mark. Einar, on the other hand, 2/3 of the way there.
Yeah, a little bit further along in his quest.
That is a tune with Ether. A real, like, you know, you brace yourself. When you fire up Magic Online, you play your opponent. First turn, they like play like Forest or whatever land and like tap it for green and go to with Ether. You're like, uh-oh, okay.
Yeah,
I know what I'm in for.
You have to get ready for them to spin the wheel.
Yeah. There you get a look at a tune with Ether. Just, you know, just a really deceptively simple card that has really made this deck, you know, function so smoothly.
Yeah, there are a number of decks in Standard that could not exist without this, like, stupid Lay of the Land card, right? Like, it's crazy.
All right. So now Harness Lightning is going to take out the Rogue Refiner, and Einar is going to get in with his Rogue Refiner. And that's been the hallmark of these Marvel decks that we really saw last week, is they're actually operating in the red zone a little bit more than we saw before the Pro Tour.
Absolutely. Like, they've recognized that they're able to kill opponents without the combo.
Well, I mean, look at Paul's deck. I mean, Paul's deck, when you look at it, there's so many creatures in there and so many not blank hits off your Marvel, right? Like hitting an Ishkanar Graph Widow off your Marvel is great. Hitting a Demon of Dark Schemes is just great.
Paul here, missed land drop. Now it looks like it's going to be a second turn in a row where he's missing a land drop, and that's really, really rough because he wants to be, playing these cards that are increasing his energy count. He wants to be getting to that 6 energy.
And and Einar's untapping with 7 energy for land, so he's really just sweating the Marvel here because he could get, just sent back to the Stone Age here with an Ulamog hit. And that looks like what we're going to go for. So there's the Marvel. He's just going to spin it right away. This is not a situation where you want to wait. He's going to look at the
Wheel of
Ulamog. And there's an Ulamog. So this is going to be a quick game 1. Doesn't waste any time. Puts the Ulamog into play.
Yeah, that's summoning sick. Yeah, so he basically killed 2 permanents at random at this point.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. So he's going to kill the Servant. He's going to kill Black Source. We're going to see
the
Dissenter's Deliverance here.
Yeah, he's going to cycle it.
Yeah, but I'm not sure what his way out is. And then gets in with the Rogue Refiner. This is uncharted territory. Don't people just concede here normally?
That's the general consensus of what's normally done in this format.
Paul's at 14. He can survive 1 attack phase here. Takes out the Marvel.
Yeah, that's a 10-10. And presumably Paul probably concede when attacked so that Einar can't get a good look at what he's playing because he is playing an interesting list. So, you don't want him to know all of the one-ofs you have in your Sultai deck. And those one-ofs, you can find them reasonably often because you're playing cards like Vessel. So.
And there's the attack. But Paul says, sure. Here we go. He's going to exile the top 20 cards of Paul's library. And this is Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger. Normally, 10 mana, and pretty reasonable at 10 mana. Like, I've cast this for 10, and it's like, wow, that really swung the game.
Yeah.
But, with this Marvel deck, you get to play it essentially for 4 mana.
And that's not really fair. When you play it for 4 mana in Modern, you need, perfect Tron draw with 2 towers, and, yeah.
And so Einar backs it up with a Whirler Virtuoso. He's got a Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot. Gains a little life. Paul is at 1 with 2 mana. There must be something that he's thinking is a way out, but you saw he had the multiple copies of Aetherwork Marvel in his hand. Could not get to 4 mana, and Ulamog said, no, you're not going to get there.
It closed
so
the
game
real
1
fast.
Goes to Einar Baldvinsson. We'll be back right after this quick break. Welcome back, and perfect timing. These guys are shuffling up, getting underway here for Game 2. I can tell you a little bit about both of these players. Einar Baldvinsson was the Icelandic World Magic Cup champion. Paul Hudson is from Quebec City, so fairly local. Meanwhile, we're going to take a look over at Gregory Bach with Bant Aggro.
What?
Versus Jose Antonio Sajour with a rogue deck here in Mardu Vehicles. What happened to Mardu Vehicles, Jake?
Yeah, I think, 7 days ago, if you asked anybody what the most popular deck in Standard was, they would have told you it was Mardu Vehicles. And I'm not convinced that this is gone from the format just yet. The thing about Mardu Vehicles is that it's real fast and real consistent and just gets people dead. And if people start, playing less cards to interact with them efficiently, as they will do because they're expecting less Mardu Vehicles, it's just going to make this deck more powerful. And we could very easily see this deck, race its way into the top 8.
And speaking of vehicles, though, there you see a Heart of Kiran in play for the Bant Aggro deck. But Ether Spear Harvester being crewed up by
a veteran motorist.
Yeah, veteran motorist. One of the cards that really, exemplifies the Mardu Vehicles deck. Although, so does the Exemplar.
Yeah. Ether Sphere Harvester, too. I think that's a great call for this weekend. That's a card that's, a week and a half ago would be in some of these lists and not in others. But the thing about that card that makes it so good this weekend is that it gives the Mardu Vehicles deck a really nice way to race the opposing zombie decks.
Yeah. And there you see the Aethersphere Harvester takes down Gideon on 4 loyalty. Of course, it's because it got +1/+1 when it was crewed by the motorist. And then Gideon comes out. And isn't this always how it works? Big swing from the Mardu Vehicles deck, and then they just back it up with Gideon, ally of Zendikar.
Yeah. That's a heck of a card.
I know I know it's a card that you think is I think ridiculous is the term you've used when we talked about it. A card that I think when it was first released, you're like, wow, this is a really good card, and you've seen all the sort of individual abilities on it before, and gone, yeah, this is gonna be a good card. This is gonna be played in Standard, but like to the point where it's one of the best cards in Standard. Did you quite see that coming when that card was printed?
Yeah, I mean, I think in in a vacuum, not considering the existence of things like Ulamog to marvel into, I think Gideon, Ally of Zendikar, is the most powerful card that we currently have access to in Standard as a standalone card. And, it's crazy to me now that we have, a number of top decks in the format that are not playing with this card. Quite surprising to me. But, I mean, it works especially well now that you have cards like Heart of Kiran, too, where it makes Gideon even better. So
Rishgar Pima Renegade comes down for Gregory Bach, puts counters on his Duskwatch Recruiter, and crews his Heart of Kiran and puts a counter on the Heart of Kiran as well. So it's kind of a nice little play there, because that counter is going to stay on even while it's not animated. So it sounds like we're ready to go back to our main table, though. They're getting underway here in this Marvel Mirror. And both players open up with land. No, attune with Ether. Who's the beatdown now?
Not a very aggressive start from either player. So Game 2s in this matchup are often much more interesting.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
These players are going to be taking out cards like Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot, and they're going to be bringing in more interaction, so we'll probably see some number of negate from both these players. People, a lot of time, they'll be siding in some number of dispel even.
I love
to
that.
Fight the sideboard negates. So there's a lot more play here. A lot of the time, Game 2s, Game 3s in this matchup are won by people spending 10 mana to cast an Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger. The thing, Game 1 is often the roll of the die, the spin of the wheel.
Interesting to see a card like Evolving Wilds. Not a card we see on the Team of Marvel side so much, but in the Sultai Marvel side, which has this Delirium component, that card really shines.
Absolutely. I mean, for them, getting that extra card type in the graveyard actually matters. So they can fix their mana. It's like an Attune with Ether that doesn't give you energy, but fights toward Delirium a little bit.
So there we go. He's come 3 mana, Rogue Refiner from Paul Hudson. Deck's operating a lot more smoothly today. It did in game 1. Rogue Refiner also just such a great card. All right, Dissenter's Deliverance gets cycled by Einar Baldvinsson at the end of the turn.
Yeah, Rogue Refiner is kind of insane. You know, it replaces itself. It's a 3-power body for 3 mana, and it gives you those energy. So you see Dissenter's Deliverance. Lots of nice flavor on that card. You know, breaking the Dissenters out of their sarcophagi.
So both these players you see playing round 1 probably have played more Magic in the past and would be more likely to have buys. But both of them are dads, and said, you know, don't have as much time to play Magic as they normally would. 3 kids for Einar, 1 kid for Paul, and you know, they're like, you know, and you know, Einar's visiting friends in Montreal. Paul live, you know, this is his local GP, so both players, you know, cashing in some valuable valuable points to be able to play this weekend.
I know that story. I played at GP New Jersey, so it was fun to have that Magic weekend as a dad. A lot of the listeners probably have, you know, similar things where, you know, you can be passionate about a lot of things at the same time, but it's important to have your priorities in order.
So another Rogue Refiner for Paul Hudson. You see maybe like acknowledging the fact that after sideboard there's some different things going on. He's like, puts it down, waits a second.
I would be surprised to see a counterspell that could get a Rogue Refiner.
You can have Commit to Memory.
Oh, that's true. He does have 4 up.
Commit to Memory is kind of a sweet card against Marvel.
It is. I mean, it's a great card in general.
Yeah. I'm playing a lot of that card this week. Both sides.
I've played a lot of that card in Limited. I've been really impressed.
Really?
With. Basically a blue cast out. You know, it's insane.
Not a card that's going to come up, I believe, looking at these 2 lists, though. So what are you seeing sideboard wise from these 2 players that we might expect to see in this game?
So Einar has 3 copies of the Gate and 2 Manglehorn.
Oh, wow. Murderous Gearhulk comes down for Paul Hudson. That resolves. It's an 8/8. We're playing Magic like it's 1995. We're just casting giant green fatties. Somewhere Jamie Wakefield just fired up the stream.
Yeah.
There you look at the Murderous Gearhulk. Normally, you know, you have a bunch of other creatures in play. You get to distribute those counters, but you can also just keep them for yourself. Make it 8/8. Trample.
Unfortunately for Paul Hudson here, I think Einar has a Manglehorn in hand.
Oh, no.
Which is brutal.
Manglehorn takes down the Murderous Gearhulk. It also, as long as that's in play, that means Paul Hudson's
Marvel comes into play tapped.
It's gonna slow down Paul's game plan. There you get a look at Manglehorn, one of the new additions from this new set, and it really does have an impact once it's on the board. It hits when it enters the battlefield, but as long as it's there, it really does change the tempo of this game.
Yeah, I've had games where I had set up to cast an Aetherworks Marvel to spin and try to win the game on the following turn in this format, and my opponent has used Traverse the Elvenwald.
Now I think you're seeing here he cast Fatal Push on the Manglehorn, but did not. You could still, he was like, oh, I can't cast it. Oh no, yeah, actually you can cast it. It just only kills it if. So that's a little bit of maybe rust for Paul Hudson there. You see Fatal Push. Revolt was not triggered, so you can target the creature, destroy target creature if it has converted mana cost 2 or less.
So it's still a legal target.
It is still a legal target. If Revolt is on, then that the Manglehorn would have died. But right now it's just cycle Fatal Push, forget to draw a card.
And not where you want to be.
And you see Paul's like, hey, do I have any recourse here? And this is actually, if you're not sure, this is something you should always do. He's asking a judge. Yeah. You should always,
if you're not sure,
just always ask the judge.
Ask the judge.
You'll sometimes, see people making a judge call in a situation where you're like, well, doesn't he know that? It's like, you know what? Just double check. You see the same thing. You'll see Hall of Fame pros reading a Magic card from their opponent. It's like, just give it another read, right? Like that's just a good practice to be in, because your brain can sometimes, get you in trouble.
At Grand Prix, New Jersey, I had a lot of rust. I was playing Saheeli combo, and I cast the Saheeli for the win, and my opponent says, you don't have the right mana for that. And I was like, oh, okay. And I picked up the Saheeli and said go, and then he untapped his lands. And then I was like, wait, I have an Oath of Nissa in play. And he's like, well, you didn't cast it. And I was like, but you're the one who made me pick it up. So I called the judge, and the judge is like, no, he wins. So I got the freebie for that one. Always call a judge.
So, and that's what these players are doing. That's what we're waiting on. But this is not going to work out in Paul's favor.
Oh, no. Absolutely not. So when I was talking about Manglehorn before, I've had games where I'd set up to cast Marvel on the following turn to get to spin it, and my opponent cast Traverse the Elvenwald and cast Manglehorn not to kill anything, just to prevent me from spinning a Marvel on the following turn, and it was backbreaking.
Right.
Like, I couldn't win anymore. So that additional text, besides just destroying the artifact, is exceptionally important on Manglehorn in a format with Aetherworks Marvel.
So now Paul Hudson stepping away from the table to talk to the judge. Maybe we can get a look in at one of the other tables while these guys resolve that.
Just trying to figure out.
Okay. Well, it doesn't sound like the other table's playing Magic either. So we're just going to stay here. Yeah, lots of judge calls going on in the feature match area. So.
One thing that's interesting is the Verdurous Gearhulk. On its face, you're thinking to yourself, this is going to be great out of the sideboard here. All of the removal out of my opponent's deck is burn. But then there's going to be all this incidental hate coming in, right? Because your opponent's going to be, if they have Descender's Deliverance, it might be coming out of their deck in favor of counter magic. But they're going to be bringing in cards like Manglehorn, and suddenly you just have the chance to get completely blown out when you tap out for a Verdurous Gearhulk, because not only can your opponent kill it while adding a threat to the board, but they're able to do so while leaving open counter magic if you have the Marvel.
Right. Yeah, and it's normally you see Verdurous Gearhulk in a deck that's going to go 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop, sort of go wide on the board, and then distribute those counters, ideally with a Winding Constrictor in play, and double those counters.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
So and then Verdurous Gearhulk, is that a one of in this deck? Yeah, it is one of the just like cool one of cards, and it's also a great, if you're playing a Delirium deck, it counts as 2 creature types in your graveyard. Mm-hmm. So or 2 card types, a creature and an artifact. So that's always sweet.
And, it's one of those cards that's nice to have as a one of when you're playing cards like Traverse the Elvenwald in your deck, because there are many situations where your opponent will die because that card is in your deck.
Yeah. So Paul has gotten some answer from the judge, and he's sitting down at the table, but Einar's guy, he's like, well, I also have a question. I'm not sure what he's asking, but.
Any restaurant recommendations?
Well, you know what? We've had a lot of good results asking judges for food recommendations the last couple of events.
Yeah, the food's really good here in Montreal. Highly recommended.
Paul Hudson, you can't see his face here, but wearing a Blue Jays cap, despite the Montreal, Quebec City, team went to the Washington area, the Montreal Expos, so has switched over to a Blue Jays cap. All right, Einar's back at the table now. That Manglehorn is, I believe, still just going to be in play. Judges are talking. It's nice that Einar wanted me to not have to use my reading glasses to see that.
He's like, here, check out the rest of the text on this guy. It's pretty good. It is quite good. I think this is some of the best I've ever seen it be.
What's that?
This is about the best I've ever seen a Manglehorn be, even. It's a very good card, but...
Trading up for an 8-power creature?
Yeah. Like getting to kill a Verdurous Gearhulk while also
Also duressing a fatal push.
Yeah. Yeah, he got the fatal push, he got the Verdur's Gear Hulk, and now his opponent's Aetherworks Marvels will all come into play tapped.
Yeah.
That's a big game for 3 mana.
You're expecting 2 out of 3 there, right? But
yeah.
The third's a little bonus. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure why this is taking so long. So you talked about the card Yahini's Expertise in Paul's deck. What is that card? What role is that filling in this deck?
So zombies, I think, is the main reason that we're seeing a card like Yahini's Expertise. Those types of sweepers weren't in favor last week in going into the Pro Tour because people expected the aggressive deck of choice to be Mardu vehicles. And if the aggressive deck of choice is Mardu vehicles, then these sweepers aren't really that effective. You might get a 2-for-1, but if you do get a 2-for-1, you're leaving yourself open to getting blown out by a Gideon. And oftentimes, you're not even getting that 2-for-1 because their threats are vehicles. So, you kill some creatures, but they still have a Heart of Kirin. They still have an Aether Sphere Harvester. So when you're playing against an aggro deck like that, it's really hard to, wipe their board with a card like Yahini's Expertise, and therefore that card isn't really worth a slot in your deck. When you're playing against zombies, Yahini's Expertise is insane. Because not only are you wiping their board, but you're also then sticking, some type of threat. You're also like putting a Rogue Refiner onto the table.
Right.
I also saw a lot of players trying cards like Flaying Tendrils because it exiles the creatures that get killed by it. I actually think Yahini's Expertise is a better choice than Flaying Tendrils because the difference between -2/-2 and -3/-3 is so big.
Well, that ability to take out a Lord of the Accursed is huge because even if the other zombies are 3/3s from the Lord of the Accursed, when the Lord of the Accursed dies, they lose that bonus, and then you get to sweep the board.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's the biggest reason why. This is
the longest judge ruling I've seen for Fatal Push. But that's kind of a sweet card, and that's the kind of thing we're seeing as a direct result from the Pro Tour. Now what do you obviously the teamer deck that Einar's playing, that already was metagame for zombies, right? Like the Genesis guys knew zombies was coming in, and the Challenger Flamecaller was there as a nod to that matchup, right?
Yeah, and Challenger Flamecaller is the perfect card for beating zombies. I mean, you get to -3 it, then you still have this awesome Planeswalker in play. Post board, he even adds Sweltering Suns to the mix. So he's got access to 6 sweepers post board.
All right, sounds like we have a judge ruling completed on the other table. So let's go check in there as Jose Sajour is up 1-0 over Gregory Bach, and there we see a Greenbelt Rampager briefly make an appearance on the battlefield and pick up some energy.
It's an odd thing to see, like a glimpse of an elephant.
Yeah.
Like, Where did he go? Where did he go?
I just see an elephant? And there you see the elephant gets an energy, plays it again, gets an energy, and then now has the 2 energy for it to stick and play on turn 2. And that's a 3/4 that hits pretty hard.
Yeah, 3/4 on turn 2 is nothing to scoff at. It is.
What? Much. Sure, we've wound back in time here.
Okay.
So he's like, okay, 2 energy. Now, okay.
All right, well.
Oh.
I'm
the
so
ruling
confused.
was creatures in front of your lands.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay.
That's hilarious to me.
I was like, what? I don't understand. Okay.
Elephant done playing this very long game of peekaboo.
Yeah.
And
it's me! Thraben Lieutenant comes down. Thraben Inspector comes down for Jose. Gets his clue.
Jose has in odd hand. This is not where you want to be with Mardu vehicles. You want to be playing 1-drop, 2-drop. You want to be curving out in that way. When you're playing a 1-drop on turn 2 and you didn't have a play in your first turn of the game and you're on the draw, it's a bad spot to be in. Looks like is that I'm sorry.
that an Aether Geode Minor?
I think it may be an Aether Geode Minor. Is it? No, I don't.
Yeah, I can't. I'm sorry. I'm having trouble on my monitor here.
I can't really see clearly enough. It's not what I'm used to seeing often.
Oh, it's a Solemn Recruit. That's what it is. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I should know.
Yeah, Jose also needs to read the card. Another Greenbelt Rampager for Gregory Bach.
Oh, I see a nice one here in Gregory Bach's hand. I see a Woodland Wanderer.
Oh, wow. That's a card that is we haven't seen a lot of in this standard format.
No, it's a card that initially was kind of pushed out by the existence of Reflector Mage.
Yeah.
It was like really hard to play a 4-drop that didn't do something when it came into play.
So Solemn Recruit, Greenbelt Rampager, really nice interaction. So it's a double strike 2/2 for 3 mana, but if a permanent left the battlefield, you get a +1/+1 counter at the beginning of your end step. So that's a sweet little synergy there for Gregory Bach, and if he can keep finding a little ways to use up some energy, he can just keep getting that double striking creature bigger and bigger with his Greenbelt Rampager.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty hard to race even a 3/3 double strike. The thing's already attacking for 6 damage on the following turn.
Well, Jose's got his creatures climbing inside the Harvester, and he's getting in. He's using a little energy there. He's going to gain some life.
Yeah, and that's a 6-point swing.
And that's the race that he's you know, that's his. Oh my gosh, here we go.
Oh, this is fun to watch. We're going to see a Rishkar Pima Renegade.
Yeah, we are.
Is going to pump up the Solid Recruit even more, so it's going to be getting in for 8 damage. It's an attack for 12 potentially on this turn. The thing is, Jose passed the turn with 4 mana untapped and didn't have plays in the early turns of the game, so I think that the chances of him not having a card like Unlicensed Disintegration are certainly very close to 0. Yeah, so likely what we're going to see here is when Gregory Bach attempts to use some type of pump spell on the Solemn Recruit, Jose is going to use either Grasp of Darkness, Unlicensed Disintegration.
At the moment, right? He only has 1 black source.
Oh, wow, okay, yeah. So he could hypothetically sacrifice his Clue and then Fatal Push,
right,
or he could use Unlicensed Disintegration.
I'm not sure. Now, again, we have some... Okay, here we go. Attack. Doesn't play the Rishkar Pima Renegade first. Just decides to attack. And 4 mana to cast out the Solemn Recruit. Greg's like, okay, take 3. Yeah. Fair enough. There you see cast out. A flash Oblivion Ring effect of sorts. And there you see Greg counting up his different colored sources of mana for the Woodland Wanderer. And that comes down as a 5/5.
Yeah, 5/5 with Vigilance and Trample. That thing rumbles.
Yeah.
We've seen that card in 4-color energy decks in the past.
Right.
As a 6/6 for 4 mana.
All right. And
pretty powerful.
Jose plays a Scrap Heap Scrounger. And is just going to, I guess, keep getting in there with the Aethersphere Harvester.
Yeah. I mean, you might as well. And the thing is, that card's very good at racing.
Chooses to overcrew it with the Scrounger so that his Thraben Inspector is able to block.
Yeah. If need be. The thing is, Scrap Heap Scrounger is not going to be blocking anyway, so it might as well jump into the Aethersphere Harvester here.
And there we see, another appearance of Manglehorn just showed up for Gregory Bach in hand. So he's going to be able to take down that Harvester.
Yeah, and this is maybe the matchup where Manglehorn is at its absolute best. I mean, being able to kill Heart of Kyrans and Aethersphere Harvesters while advancing your board state is really good.
So there's the Unlicensed Disintegration you were talking about earlier, Jake. It's going to take out the Woodland Wanderer. It's going to do some damage to Gregory Bach there because Jose does control an artifact.
And here, Jose, despite not having a 1-drop, despite only having a Thraben Inspector for the second turn, now he's in solid control of this game, winning by 9 life. I mean...
Okay, so Manglehorn comes down, takes out the Harvester. Here comes a Greenbelt Rampager. And, I mean, Greg's keeping himself very much in this game.
Yeah, at this point, I think, Jose needs to start drawing some good cards. He's down to 2 cards left in hand here. He has that clue in play, which is going to help him out a little bit.
Uh-oh. Does that mean Gideon? No, it means Nahiri, the Harbinger.
Wow.
Nahiri, the Harbinger. He's going to immediately rummage a card. Did he find something? He did. He found another Thraben Inspector. That's like 2 cards.
Basically.
Gets a clue.
Which comes into play tapped, by the way, because...
Oh, funny. Yeah. There you get a look at Nahiri, the Harbinger. One of the things I love about the Mardu Vehicles deck, which seems like a weird statement to make, but is it's very similar to the Marvel deck. After sideboarding, the deck feels so different. It really does. You talked about him not having that aggressive opening, but the deck really does become this almost like much more mid-rangey deck with a lot of planeswalkers, some flash creatures, in the form of Avacyn. It is a very different feeling than what you have in in game 1. All right. Wow.
And that's one of the things that makes
Sky Sovereign comes down.
Mardu Vehicles deck so hard to sideboard against.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does 3 to Nahiri.
Is suddenly Gregory in such solid control.
There
of
you
this
get a
game.
look at Sky Sovereign flagship. Can't do damage to players, but it can deal damage to a planeswalker, which is kind of a nice little hidden benefit of the card.
And this card's great. This is a card that I think we expected to see more of in Standard. I did, at least, when I first saw it. It's been a great sideboard option, though.
It was definitely, we definitely saw a lot of it at the Pro Tour, a lot more than we'd seen in previous Standard formats. I'm not really sure what Jose can do here. I think we're going to get a game 3.
It looks like it's going to be hard to overcome this board. And Jose's deck is pretty stock as far as, Mardu Vehicles decks go.
Remember, Greg has been sitting on that Rishkar Pima Renegade almost the entire game.
Oh, interesting. So I like this line from Jose, though. Just going to get in, put Gregory down to 4 here. And then maybe try to get some reach going. But we don't know what's in his hand.
Yeah, and he likes it enough that he didn't want to discard it.
Yeah, there's a plan.
Wow. Great. Right, Jose is at a robust 20 here. But here's Rishkar. Puts a counter on Manglehorn. Puts a counter on Rishkar itself.
This is a ton of damage coming in.
Yeah.
I think Jose probably just has 1 turn left.
So Rishkar is going to crew the Sky Sovereign. Wow. And into the red zone. He's like, okay, he's got a card. He's like, what is that card? What am I dead to here? And again, there is a Needle Spire still on the table. So he takes down the Scrap Heap Scrounger, attacks the Planeswalker.
Well, I think he used the Sky Sovereign trigger probably for the Planeswalker. And then...
No, I think he used the Sky Sovereign trigger on the Scrap Heap Scrounger.
And then got the Planeswalker. Yeah. That makes sense, yeah.
And Jose falls to 11. And he has Duskwatch Recruiter and Greenbelt Rampager to hold the fort against that Needle Spires.
Wise of him to hold those 2 cards there. Now Jose needs to either do 4 this turn or find a way to survive till the next turn, so that, which is not an easy thing to accomplish here. It seems like he has Chandra Torch of Defiance in his hand, so that right there is worth 2 damage.
Yep.
You can put Gregory down to 2 here, but on the following turn, he's just dead. Doesn't look like he has much recourse here. If he does sacrifice those clues, then his mana's too tight to do anything.
Okay, we're going to get a game 3. Gregory, Bach, Bant Aggro. Greenbelt Rampager, Solemn Recruit.
We saw some sweet cards in that game.
And that's not like a one of Solemn Recruit. You know, that's like, there's 3 of those in the main deck. That's a card he's really looking to show off this weekend, right? He's like, yeah, I like this deck, and you know that's something that he's looking to do. Aether Geode Renegade, Aether Geode Minor also in the deck. All right, so we pick things up here with Baldvinsson versus Hudson. Looks like we are deep into game 2.
Yeah, again, these second games last a long time in this matchup.
But you see that Paul Hudson sitting on 12 energy and an untapped Aetherworks Marvel.
Yes, it's going to be 2 spins of that wheel.
Yeah, 1 energy for Baldvinsson. So, Tireless Tracker, he's going to go to his attack step. And Paul Hudson is going to spin the wheel. Oh, I'm sorry, he had 9 energy. Yeah. Does not look, he's past the 6-second mark, so that means there's no Ulamog.
Yeah.
But does find another Rogue Refiner. He's like, yeah. Goes up to 5 energy. Now it's kind of interesting. Like maybe you let your opponent attack there, because if you're going to hit a creature, you get another energy trading in combat.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's normally the play here. Paul's got to feel good about his spot, considering what we saw happen earlier in this game. You have to remember, this is the same game where he had a Verger's Gear Hulk Manglehorned and then just discarded a Fatal Push for fun.
Right. All right. There's Servant of the Conduit for Baldvinsson. That gets him to 3 energy. And if he can find a couple lands, he can start turning lands into energy by sacrificing the clues from the Tireless Tracker. Oh, perfect draw there for Paul Hudson. Attune with Ether. You know, I don't know how many times he spun the wheel here, but he is going to be shuffling up maybe some dead section of his deck back up into his deck. But it does get him the energy to be able to activate his Aetherwork Marvel.
Both these players now, too, getting dangerously close to casting Ulamog.
Oh, yeah. And
when you get to this stage of the game, like you're going to draw one at some point. So it's not unlikely that both these players have one in their hand. Einar has access to 8 mana on the following turn now with that Servant of the Conduit. And this is also an 8th land for Paul Hudson here.
Yeah, I think we're going to see an Ishkanah Graph Widow. We are. Good thing we sleeved up those spider tokens this morning. And you see 3 spiders come into play with Ishkanah. He has Delirium.
And if you're able to turn off the Ulamog part of the Marvel deck, Ishkanah is basically the end, because like if Whirl of Virtuoso is never getting through that thing, Rogue Refiner, it's a brick wall they can't get past without their Ulamog.
So 2 Rogue Refiners get in, and Servant of the Conduit steps in the path here. Those trade.
Yeah, I mean, that energy is more valuable to Einar than it is to Paul at this point.
Yep.
Paul has enough already to be activating his Marvel.
Gets Einar to 4 energy. Should get Paul to 8 energy, but I think he missed that. And there's a Fatal Push. And that's going to get Einar to 5. But, you know, it does get their Tireless Tracker off the table. And, yeah, Paul realizes he did miss an energy there. He's like, all right, fine.
I mean, Paul also, when he chose to use that Fatal Push, that leaves him with only 1 mana open, and he does have a negate in hand. So this is a window that Einar has not had an opportunity to abuse just yet.
We see that Einar does look like he's done the double Ula Mulligan here, where he has
that's
two.
rough.
He has 2 Ulamogs in hand. All right, so Einar is casting a marvel.
So legend rule will go off, and he'll get 2 energy when that
Right. Well, so
one of them dies.
Before that's resolved, Paul has decided to activate his.
Does he hit?
Work
Does
marvel.
he hit?
It looks like he's got another marvel, so he's going to do the same thing, but doesn't have the mana, doesn't have the energy to activate it again. But he is going to get 2 energy when he legend rolls, but so is Einar, so Einar's going to be able to activate his. But we do know that he has 2 Ulamogs in hand,
Yeah. So not the most likely that you're going to hit one off the top 6 cards of your library here.
Oh, and Paul may be showing a little bit of an experience here. He should have gotten 2 energy off of that.
Spin that wheel.
Here we go.
What do we find?
With 2 Ulamogs in hand. He's like, yep, still in my hand. Finds a Rogue Refiner. And this is really what a lot of these game 2s end up looking like. Yeah. Gets a couple more energy. Oh, and then, the Dissenter's Deliverance to take out Paul's Aetherworks Marvel.
And Paul with that negate.
But this is a pretty good spot here for Paul. He's got lethal on the table.
Yeah, all he has to do is activate the Ishkana.
Yeah,
and the game's over.
Yep.
Yeah.
He gets to do 4 damage with the spider and attack with everybody. Even if he blocks the spider, that's way more than 8 damage getting through here.
Yeah, that's...
And I like anytime we see
combat
Ishkana
damage.
getting activated for lethal. He's keeping 1 spider back, but...
Still plenty. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's 5 getting through.
You can lose 4. I have 4 spiders.
Yeah.
Die a spidery death.
All right, passes the turn. Has that as an option at any point. So adding up his mana. During your upkeep, activate Ishkana, the Graph Widow, and do 4 to you. So Paul Hudson pulls that game out and evens this match up at 1 game apiece. Wow.
He's got to feel pretty good about that, considering how that early game went.
Yep.
Like some things went really wrong for him, and sometimes your opponent draws a couple 10 drops.
It's certainly the
Bails you out a little
quote-unquote
bit.
fair part of the deck, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And again, as I mentioned earlier, Paul does said he doesn't get a chance to play very much. So, also we've all gone to a tournament and you have a little bit of that rust round 1.
Absolutely.
You got to the tournament a little late. The line at Starbucks was a little too long.
Yeah. You woke up a couple times in the middle of the night because your kid was screaming. Yeah, we've all been there.
Is that a euphemism for Brian was snoring?
That's me talking about my daughter before the first day of the GP line that I played in. Yeah,
All right, both
your
players.
story wasn't too bad.
Both players looking at their opening hands here. 2 thumbs up, and we are underway.
I sleep with a pug who's 16 years old, so she snores worse than any human could ever,
Spire Bluff Canal. And then we are going to traverse the Ulvenwald from Paul Hudson.
Traverse, pretty sweet card. It's lighting a tune early, fixing your mana. Once
Then it
you
becomes
get delirium.
Then it becomes Green
Surge.
Sun Zenith.
Yeah.
Almost literally.
I mean, much better even, because you can use the leftover mana and chain it upward. Pay some now, pay some later.
So now we're going to see a turn 2 Servant of the Conduit from Paul. No Harness Lightning from Einar. So he's going to cast a tune. At this moment, this doesn't look very dissimilar from what we might see in Game 1.
No, not at all. And I think that's something too important to remember is that, if both players start playing a more aggressive game, if they start tapping out, then it's very easy to watch one of these Game 2s, one of these Game 3s just end really quickly by one person resolving a marvel. But once you start getting into that mid-game phase where people have access to marvels, like here we see Paul, he's leaving open those 2 mana, one of which is blue. I mean, you can wager dollars to donuts at this point. He's got a negate in his hand, and he just does not want Einar to have an opportunity to resolve that Aetherworks marvel.
Now, do you think Paul also brought in a card like Dispossess? I mean, he has access to it in his sideboard. Is that something you want to be doing, where you just want to take out all the marvels?
I think so. Absolutely. It's later on in the game, you can really pick what you need to get rid of, and if you can take marvel out of the equation, then suddenly you're a deck that's threatening this game-ending effect, and your opponent's forced to be this weird mid-range aggressive deck.
Mid-range deck that's trying to get to 10.
Exactly.
So Einar has Harness Lightning to take out the Servant of the Conduit. It's the Evolving Wilds from Paul Hudson.
Paul really close to Delirium at this point already. 3 different card types in his graveyard.
Here's his 4th land. You see a Dissenter's Deliverance in hand. Get ready to cycle that at the end of the turn. Also sitting on a negate. But if I've known anything about holding a negate, it just means your opponent's going to play a Tireless Tracker, a Rogue Refiner, or a Whirl of Virtuoso. Because they know the negate's there, so they're not going to play into it unless they have to, right? You're not just going to run that out there. So it's a tricky match to sideboard.
Oh, absolutely. Here, Paul choosing not to cycle his Dissenter's Deliverance there on the end step. So still no Delirium here. But in the same sense, he wants to make sure that he still has that answer to artifacts in his hand. That's still important to him.
So 6 mana for Einar. Gets another clue. And in comes the Tireless Tracker. And I think he's going to draw a card here, it looks like. Just trying to figure out which of his mana he wants to tap. Does so. Sacks a clue, gets a +1/+1 counter on his tracker, draws a card.
And this tracker at this point is threatening to take over the game by itself.
Well, I mean, that's what tracker does.
Yeah.
He's going to draw 2 cards. And he's going to get in for 5 here.
It's a planeswalker. It's a creature.
Yeah,
it's everything you want.
And it's so funny because it rarely gets into Game 1s. You know what I mean? It's like the 6th man of the year in Magic.
It is absolutely the Jamal Crawford of Magic the Gathering. I could not have described it better. That's a perfect
I like to think of it as the Andre Iguodala, but okay.
All right, that's fine. That's fine. I'll take it. Yeah, I mean, that card out of the board is so good because your opponents are, making their deck more focused at beating what you do, your plan A. And it's such a good plan B because it draws you cards. It applies pressure to your opponent. It forces them to play, answers that are not answers to your plan A. And in doing so, they find themselves just buried under this wave of card advantage while you're also just smashing them for huge amounts of damage.
Yeah. Paul Hudson casts a tune with Ether. He does have Delirium, I believe. Casts another tune with Ether. Does he have a creature?
He does. He has the Servant of Conduit in the yard.
So
and then the Center's Deliverance is the instant, so he's good.
So he is holding Ishkanah here. But it looks like he doesn't want to cast it this turn. May want to just keep his negate up.
Yeah, it seems like he has, he's sculpted his game plan so much around preventing Marvel from hitting the battlefield that he doesn't want to, put shields down after he's already sacrificed so much to keep those shields up. Because by not putting anything onto the board this whole game.
There's another Tireless Tracker. 2 clues now from that land for Einar. And in comes the Tireless Tracker. It's going to drop Paul to 10 here.
Yeah, potentially 9 even.
Yeah, Einar's going to sit back on that clue, keep his mana open. You know, again, he has access to the same, you know, counter package that Paul does. And it's one of the tricky things about sitting on that negate. There's some point where, you know, your opponent casts Marvel, you negate it, and then they get to negate you back because they're at 6 mana.
Paul does have Ishkana here with negate backup. Ishkana does a really nice job of blocking.
Yeah. There it is. Ishkana the Graph Widow.
The thing is, these Tireless Trackers, they're not the types of cards that are going to have to really worry about smashing in, though. You know, you can just gobble up some of those tokens by making attacks.
Yeah, I know he's going to sacrifice both his clues here at the end of the turn.
Yeah, that one Tireless Tracker is going to be a 7-power beater. The other one's going to have 5 power.
Yep, goes again. He doesn't really need to cast another spell this game.
He probably has 7 cards in his hand at this point.
Plays a land, gets an energy, gets 2 clues.
Yeah, now just a free attack here, essentially, because you know you're attacking for 5 potentially 7, 7 potentially 9.
Right, and so Paul's just in fog mode here.
Yeah.
Spiders just chump the 2 trackers. And now I believe we're going to see a Rogue Refiner. Yep. Gets to the magic number of 6 energy. Draws a card. And passes the turn. Yeah, with just, he needs 2 hands to hold his hand here. He's like, look at all these cards.
Exactly 7. Saw at least 1 negate in there, too, so it's going to be hard for Paul to resolve a big spell here. But although, it's worth noting that.
Well, there's Verdurous Gearhulk. It's about as big as it gets right now.
This is interesting. I mean, I'm surprised the Verdurous Gearhulk is still in his deck, to be honest, after last game. I mean, you know your opponent's bringing in the Manglehorns.
There you see the Blue Jays hat. So now he's picking, targeting where his counters are going to go. And Einar's like, all right, tell me what's happening here, because I might respond. So you see 1, 1, and 2 on the Gearhulk. And Harness Lightning is going to take out the Graph Widow here. Or attempt to anyway, but we're going to see a negate from Paul Hudson. And I believe we're going to see a counter back from Einar, who is also going to have a clear window to resolve his
Aether's Marvel now, yeah.
So the Spider's going to die. One counter on the Spider, 2 counters on the Gearhulk. That's a 6/6 Gearhulk. Not quite big enough to deal with these Tireless Trackers.
No, and Einar could easily have a card like Dissenter's Deliverance even and just get that 6/6 off the table.
So more clues. The clues are sort of off camera at the moment, but there should be 4 of them. There's the Dissenter's Deliverance. Just get that out of the way. No need for...
Did Einar play a land here?
He did. He played a land and got 2 clues. He sacrifices 1 right now.
Yeah, another.
So you're at an 8 and a 5. He's really,
the other one.
Confiscation coup for your Spider.
And that's it.
And that's going to be the game. Iceland's World Magic Cup champion, the captain of the Icelandic team, Einar Baldvinsson. He wins round 1 here at Grand Prix Montreal.
Yeah, I mean, put on a clinic of how to play with Tireless Tracker there.
Yeah, great card. We've got a little bit more round 1 Magic action for you coming up right after this. Welcome back to the booth. Brian David Marshall here with Pro Tour champion JVL. Jake, we got a little bit more Magic to watch this round. We're going to go to our time walk match, and we are going to see a couple more players in first round standard action. Let's head down to the match. All right, here you see John Prosperi on your left. He's playing against Eric Gauthier. So if I told you John Prosperi has been playing Magic for 21 years, how old would you guess John Prosperi is?
38.
26. He's been playing since he was 5 years old. But recently, after 21 years, has decided, I'm going to level up. And he and his friends have started going to Grand Prix.
That's great. I mean, that's kind of the big step, right?
Yeah. He's a Massachusetts area player. Eric Gauthier is local, and he is he's from Montreal. He's an accountant, and he's here all the time. He's like, and every time there's a Grand Prix in his hometown, he's here playing.
Eric Gauthier's got a nice one here.
Yeah, so he looks like he's playing just like classic Sultai Delirium.
It's Sultai mid-range, and it's playing some wacky stuff. He's playing a Diabolic Tutor, Brian.
Whoa!
There's a Diabolic Tutor in Eric Gauthier's deck.
So I can tell you, Jonathan Prosperi is playing a pretty classic green-black Constrictor deck.
Okay.
So, you know, the energy package looks maybe to some extent like what we saw from Brad Nelson at the Pro Tour.
Okay.
With a couple new additions, we see Aronis the Indomitable in his deck. And,
You
know,
mean
a couple
at Pro Tour Ether Revolt?
At Pro Tour Ether Revolt.
Yeah,
Yeah. So Winding Constrictor on turn 2 for John Prosperi. Eric Gauthier has his Aethersphere Harvester, a card we've already seen in action in a couple of different matchups now.
Yeah, I imagine this card's going to just get better and better as the format progresses. I mean, this card's so good at racing. It's not great against the Marvel decks, which is the big detractor. But the thing is that people weren't really playing this card, and now suddenly it's become such a great thing to have when you're playing something like Vehicles because of how good it is at racing zombies. So
Ether Hub is the third lane there for John Prosperi.
And Eric's got to feel pretty good about going 1, 2, 3 here. I mean, you always like to have that 1 mana spell, that 2 mana spell, and that 3 mana spell. It's usually really hard to lose a game when you're able to accomplish that.
So Tune with Ether, not just for Marvel decks anymore. Actually, back where we originally saw it in a lot of these green-black energy and Jund energy decks.
And I mean, if John has something like a Long Tusk Cub now, that could be gigantic.
Yeah.
It could be an epic proportions.
Yeah. 5 energy here only gives you pause if you have a sense of what your opponent's playing. It doesn't fill you with dread as it would if your opponent was a Marvel player. And, you know, when you see the Winding Constrictor, you can pretty much assume your opponent is not playing Marvel. In comes Winding Constrictor.
And that's a really powerful card that we've seen, you know. Oh, this is surprising.
Eric
no
does not trade. Doesn't attempt to trade for it. Prosperi passes the turn with 2 mana up.
Dun, dun, dun. He's playing black. John did not know that until then.
Okay, Aethersphere Harvester takes to the air here. And Eric preserves his energy, does not give it lifelink.
Yeah, he has other things to do with that energy here.
I see like a 1-of Dynavolt Tower in his deck.
Yeah, he's got an extra one in his board, too.
Here's Fatal Push. They're going to take out the Dryad.
Also, we see that Ronus the Indomitable in his hand, so he, you know, chose not to cast that. It'd be something else he wants to do with his mana.
Players being switched over to more legible dice for their energy totals. So, Glint Sleeve Siphoner in hand, a Grasp of Darkness. I believe at least 1 more Winding Constrictor. And
yeah, so it doesn't seem like Eric Gauthier has an instant in his hand, so he chose not to cast the Ronus, perhaps thinking that you know, he's playing around something here.
Yeah.
Running it from getting killed.
So there's a Glint Sleeve Siphoner, gets an extra energy thanks to Winding Constrictor. And in for 2. He's just going to pass the turn here.
Yeah, and once John starts drawing extra cards on that Glint Sleeve Siphoner, the window of opportunity to get back into the game is closing for Eric because, you know, this is kind of a more traditional match of Magic the Gathering than we're used to seeing in the standard format. A lot of the time in the standard format, there are explosive things like Aetherworks Marvel happening where you kind of need to, you know, sculpt your entire game plan around preventing that from happening or...
Is this that thing that I've heard rumors of called fair magic?
Yeah, exactly. You know, so... If John is drawing extra cards and he's got removal spells that conceivably kill what Eric is trying to attack with, and then he's...
Well, there is Ronus. Ronus the Indomitable comes down for Eric Gauthier, climbs into the Aethersphere Harvester, and battles it in. And that could get pretty gross. Once you start activating Ronus and giving your Aethersphere Harvester lifelink, you could really pull away very, very quickly.
You can get some big, big swings there. See, speaking of big swings, though.
John Prosperi draws an extra card this turn thanks to the glint sleeve siphoner.
Yeah, and I believe the extra card he drew was a Verdurous Gearhulk.
So Verdurous Gearhulk did not look great in the other match we watched this round, falling to Manglehorn and falling to a Dissenter's Deliverance at pretty key times. But boy, here it looks great.
Yeah, this is what you want it to do.
He's going to distribute counters across 3 different creatures here. Oh no, he's just going to go to 2 creatures. Okay, he is going to distribute it across 3 because you get 3 extra counters there instead of getting 2 extra counters. And there you see 3 counters. Wow, look at this. That is just absurd.
Yeah. And that's a ton of damage.
Should be one fewer there.
I think there's 1 fewer on the Winding Instructor.
Yeah, I think so.
My understanding.
Yeah. Because it was 1, 1, and 2, so that's 2, 2, and 3. So I'm sure they'll get that taken care of. And it looks like the servant is going to jump in the way. Yep. But now we're going to see a little bit of Ronus action, I believe, and maybe some energy start getting used from Eric Gauthier. Although I don't know that he can.
Path in hand too.
What's that?
He has a Ruinous Path.
Does he really? So he can take out that Verdurous Gearhulk.
It probably takes out the Winding Instructor at this point. It's already a 5/6. But I mean, at that point, his opponent's still drawing multiple cards a turn. It doesn't seem like that's
okay. He does take down the Gearhulk and passes the turn.
Oh, interesting. I'm surprised he didn't go for the 10 points of like damage swing there. He could have, given the Aethersphere Harvester lifelink and +2/+0 there,
right?
Using Ronus, and that would have been a big swing in his favor,
right?
And as you especially don't want to be passing the turn here without pressuring your opponent when they're drawing 2 cards a turn, and you're drawing 1 card a turn, and they're drawing first.
But Ronus is indestructible here, so he's going to be able to activate Ronus. Oh, but he's not going to be able to block 2 creatures because he still needs to crew the Harvester.
Yeah.
This isn't going to work out well for him. So he crews the Harvester, but double Grasp of Darkness is going to take down the Harvester.
And the thing is, that may seem like it's a 2-for-1, but the cards are flowing. Like
such a huge swing there.
It's like you have like a chocolate fountain. You're just Grasp of Darkness are everywhere.
Look at that embarrassment of energy riches John Prosperi has. 10 energy in play. Energy flooded, as it were.
He hasn't even had a chance to cast that second Winding Instructor that's been in his hand since turn 4. He's been trying too much other powerful action.
Yeah, and that is going to do it. John Prosperi is going to take game 1. And I can tell you that, we're getting ready to turn the round around here and get ready for round 2. I can tell you John Prosperi does take game 2 as well in pretty similar fashion and gets himself off to a 1-0 start in his pursuit to level up in the game after 21 years of play. He says, you know what, maybe it's time for me to start going to Grand Prix. So that's it here for round 1 at Grand Prix Montreal. For Jake Van Lunen, it's Brian David Marshall. We'll be back soon with more Magic.